Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is back. We got a lot to discuss. Michael, what's going on, my man, as we take a look at usually the quietest day on the sports calendar. We at least have an NBA Finals game tonight. How are you, man?
Right. Like, this is a day you're usually lost when it comes to sports. And I woke up this morning and said, what's there to watch tonight? And I'm like, oh, there's an NBA playoff game on at 9 o'clock tonight. So it's unusual, basically.
Now, were you into the Midsummer Classic, or are you beyond that?
I had it on in the background. I always watch it. I'm still a sucker for the introductions. I like the introduction. I almost like the pomp and circumstance that surrounds the game rather than the game itself. So I had the game on in the background while I was doing some things around the house, and had one eye on it most of the night.
Yay or nay on the All-Star Game unis?
Well, I didn't get too caught up. I'll tell you what bothered me about the uniforms, and I think this is where it kind of hurt baseball a little bit. I thought it hurt as far as recognizing who some of the players were. I give you an example, like Adam Frazier of the Pirates, right? He's an all-star. I couldn't really pick him out of a lineup, but I knew he was an all-star. So if I saw him show up in the Pirate uniform, I'd be like, hey, that must be Adam Frazier.
Yeah.
Instead, I see a guy walk up to the plate in a white uniform. I'm like, is that a Pirate logo on his jersey? What's going on here? Who is this? So that was my one complaint about the uniforms. I'm not a traditionalist here or there, but I think, it helps you recognize who the players are.
Totally.
If you don't recognize facially all 60 guys.
Yeah, no, I said if you're going to not make them wear their actual uniforms, then you can get rid of one guy from being represented from every team, because that's the charm of the game is, hey, there's my Tiger player. He gave up the home run to JT Realmuto.
Right, like Seinfeld says, right? We're rooting for the laundry, and they took the laundry out of the game, basically. So there you go.
Now, are you a Curb guy as well?
I'm a big Curb guy, yes.
Yeah, the episode where Larry gives Ted Danson the sweater with the hole in it. He's like, "Oh, Larry, you took a good thought, you just ruined it."
Right.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Is you took a good thought of coming up with all-star jerseys, but you just ruined the whole thing. Those things look like pajamas last night.
Yeah, they were kind of a throwback. That's the other thing. I thought they were a throwback to like the uniforms we used to see in the 1970s when the Chicago White Sox showed up in shorts one day or something like that. They were kind of throwback to the softball, keg at every base sort of uniforms that you saw in, Houston Astros of the 1970s, basically. So, I don't usually get all upset about it. I thought the big factor was it just hurt.
That's a good point.
Identifying the players, and I do think the fans like to see, hey, there's Zach Wheeler wearing the Phillies, red and white pinstripes out there. It sort of took that out of the game, basically.
All right, Mike. For years, you and I have battled via social media on the merits of the process. Here we are in 2021. It's still kind of lingering, and one of the main pieces, Ben Simmons' name is coming up everywhere. Reported yesterday that 5 teams are known to have interest. Now, today, one of those teams, the Kings, apparently the Sixers want a load from them if they are to make a trade. One suggested Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, and 3 first-round picks. And apparently the Sixers are not interested in those players. They want De'Aaron Fox in any deal with Sacramento. So a Fox-Simmons swap. What say you?
I have to say no to that. Again, if I'm the Sixers, again, I am looking for a more established player who has succeeded in clutch situations that the Sixers have not succeeded in themselves. De'Aaron Fox has played for Sacramento, which basically means he hasn't played a meaningful basketball game in his NBA life, okay? So now we're going to give the ball. We're going to trade Ben Simmons, and we're going to give the ball to De'Aaron Fox in Game 7 against the Miami Heat, against Atlanta, against Milwaukee next year, and he's going to get us home. I don't believe that for a second. So therefore, I'd rather keep Ben Simmons and take my chances with Ben Simmons in the 2022 playoffs than take a flyer on Fox, or even Halliburton is a player with a lot of potential. But I think the Sixers need an established star. I think they have to be able to walk up to Joel Embiid and say, here is a guy who is going to help you win an NBA championship. I don't think De'Aaron Fox or Halliburton, for that matter, or Hield or Bagley does that.
Yeah, the Buddy Hield Bagley one is more like, hey, see, Buddy Hield to me is like kind of usurping Curry. Like, aren't they kind of similar?
Yeah, I mean, to me, Buddy Hield is, a younger version of Danny Green. I mean, what are you doing? He's such a shooter. Yeah, we understand that they're going to have to surround Embiid with some shooters, but those guys are going to come to the team naturally because they're going to want to play on a team that wants to win an NBA championship. So what you need is a guy who can create scoring opportunities for himself and teammates in Game 7 of an NBA playoff series in the fourth quarter. They don't have that guy on the roster. Buddy Hield is not that guy. I'm not trading Ben Simmons until I get that guy back.
All right. So yesterday there was the report that essentially said the Sixers have opened up trade conversations. So now it becomes this cat and mouse game of where did that leak from? Is this the Sixers saying we're open for business? When they essentially now say, hey, they're interested. So do we now think the Sixers are willing and fielding offers but also making calls?
Well, I think they have to be, right? I think it's a smart, and I heard you talking before, I think it's a smart basketball move. And if you want to take it into the business side move, I think it's a smart business side move. Because if you run this team back for the Sixers.
Okay, I just clarifying.
If you run this team back next year and you talk about being relevant and things like that, the Sixers aren't going to play a relevant NBA game next season if they bring Simmons back until the second round of the 2022 playoffs. Nobody is going to believe any success they have in the regular season. Nobody is going to believe anything's changed. How are you going to get excited about 50 wins in the regular season if you know they have this stumbling block in the playoffs and if you know they haven't done anything to address it? So if they do trade Simmons, okay, then you create some excitement around the regular season also because you're going to say, hey, how does player A, let's just say it's Damian Lillard, how does Damian Lillard fit in with Joel Embiid? How is their chemistry working? Are they working well together? Then you create some relevance to the regular season. If they bring Simmons back, they're going to be a good team. They're going to win 50 games and they're going to win the first round of the NBA playoffs. They're going to get to the second round of the NBA playoffs, and that's when people will start to pay attention because that's the question that they've got to answer.
The article over at The Athletic suggested interest across the league in Simmons remains robust. Now, Mark Stein mentioned 5 teams, and I feel that those 5 teams all have something in common, Mike. They are 5 smaller market teams that can't get a superstar player unless they're awful, right? They can't get a free agent to go there unless they draft a guy. This is a way for one of these teams to get a player that they can no other way get their hands on. That's why I think Simmons is going to have more value than people think.
Oh, from the start, if you remember, I've always said on here, I always thought people who said his trade value was low or you couldn't trade him now, I always thought those people were crazy. I agree. I think there's more than those 5 teams out there because Ben Simmons is a player. He's a number 1 draft pick. He's an all-NBA defensive player. He's been an NBA All-Star. And like you said, you can't get those players on the open market normally. It's hard to draft them. I heard you mention Minnesota before. Minnesota's been allegedly tanking for years. They seem to always have the number 1, 2, or number 3 pick, but they always miss on those guys. Wiggins, Towns has been okay. They bring Butler in. They can't keep Butler. They can't get things going there. It's hard to get a player like Ben Simmons. And I still think, again, being forced into the position of defending Ben Simmons, I think Ben Simmons on the right team is a valuable guy who can help you win in the NBA. He just can't do it with Embiid in Philadelphia. It's just a bad mix. If you put Simmons on a team, make him a small ball center and surround him with 4 shooters, then you can hide him in the dunker spot in the fourth quarter and it'll be okay. But when you're trying to post Embiid and hide Simmons, it doesn't work.
That's, it's interesting. Like, what do you make of all these analytics that say they are the best duo, offensive efficiency when they're together, they're the best? Because you can make a strong argument, Mike, that if Ben Simmons was regular season Ben Simmons and not this guy who shot 36% and decided not to shoot for a couple of games in the playoffs, they would have swept that Hawks team.
Well, you said the key words right there. Regular season, okay? There's a huge difference between the regular season and the postseason. Ben Simmons in the regular season, the Sixers run it back next year with Ben Simmons. They're 50 wins. They're top 2, top 3 seed in the NBA. What we have seen, we saw it against Toronto. We saw it against Atlanta. It does not work in the playoffs. So if you want to bring Ben Simmons back and continue to be eliminated in the first and second round of the NBA playoffs, feel free. But it does not work in game sevens of NBA playoffs. And those are the games you have to win to get to a championship, or for the Phillies to get, Sixers to get to that next level. So Ben Simmons, tell me all the stats you want. They're great. I'm a big believer in analytics, but I'm also a big believer in my eyes. The analytics tell me it works during the regular season. My eyes tell me that it doesn't work in the playoffs, and the stats also tell me that it doesn't work in the fourth quarter.
You're right about this, Mike. I'm not going to push you on this too much, but his past playoff years, he did not shoot 36% from the free throw line.
Well, but he did, and I've run the stats off. I've said it several times. Look at his fourth quarters against Toronto in that 7-game series, and look at his fourth quarters against Atlanta. Yeah, and he's just a non-factor.
Unacceptable. Totally unacceptable.
And this year, he had to be pulled from the game. So you can't have a guy who's supposedly your number 2 player being pulled from the game with 3 minutes to go, and you're involved in a one-possession game. You can't have it, and that's what happens in Philadelphia, and that's why he has to go.
Mike, we'll close out with this. You wrote about Chase Petty and how the Twins fell for him. The whole area, you got more guys drafted. There's so many guys in the minors. We kind of hit on this a few times, but with Petty being drafted in the first round, the Bishop Yusuf kid Salamento in the second round, others the last couple of days, how big is baseball booming in this area?
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. We had Josh Hood, a former press player of the year from, I think, 2016 or 17, a St. Augustine graduate, a Vineland resident. He was drafted by the Red Sox in the 20th round. So he's the latest player from the Cape Atlantic League to go. And again, I said in the early 1990s, baseball, it was a barren wasteland. You know, it was freezing out down by the shore. Nobody, there were some good players. But now, I don't know what's happened. Call it the Mike Trout effect from 2009. I'm sure Chase Petty will give it another boost here. Baseball is booming. We have more players in major league organizations playing professional baseball than we do in any other sport. And it's not even close. And it's showing no signs of slowing down. It's just baseball has just become this area's top sport, and from where it was 20 years ago, it's really a remarkable transformation.
Read Mike's article on Petty and his 100-mile-per-hour fastball heading to Minnesota over at AC Press McGarry on Twitter or pressofatlanticcity.com. Mike, all right, pal. I'll talk to you later.
All right, we'll see you down the road. Thanks.
All right, that's Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Kind enough, of course, to join us here on the Wednesday show.